Nathan Cross never believed in ghosts, but watching Sarah Mitchell pace her office at midnight, having animated conversations with someone who wasn't there, made him question everything he thought he knew. As her newly hired bodyguard, he'd been trained to protect her from external threats. But what do you do when the threat might be coming from within? What Nathan discovered over the next few weeks would shake the foundations of Seattle's tech industry and force him to make an impossible choice between duty and truth. Before we begin the story, comment below with the city you're watching from. Enjoy the story, everyone. Nathan Cross had 20 years of experience in executive protection. He'd guarded diplomats in war zones, celebrities at award shows, and CEOs through hostile takeovers. At 38, he'd seen it all, or so he thought. The job protecting Sarah Mitchell, founder and CEO of Quantum Dynamics, one of Seattle's fastest-growing cybersecurity firms, should have been straightforward. High-profile client, standard threats, routine protocols. It wasn't. The first sign that something was off came on Nathan's third night on the job. Sarah worked late. That wasn't unusual for tech executives. What was unusual was the conversation he overheard at 11:47 p.m. Nathan had been doing his regular security sweep of Quantum Dynamics' 20th floor executive suite. The Seattle skyline glittered through floor-to-ceiling windows, rain streaking the glass in patterns that caught the city lights. Sarah's office door was slightly ajar, a sliver of warm light spilling into the darkened hallway. He heard her voice, clear and animated. "No, that's not going to work. If we move the timeline up, we risk exposure. The encryption needs to be flawless before we proceed." Nathan paused. Was she on a call? At this hour? "I understand the pressure," Sarah continued, her tone shifting to something softer, almost pleading. "But we can't rush this. Too many people are depending on us getting it right. Lives are at stake." Lives? Nathan's instincts kicked in. He'd been briefed on standard corporate espionage threats, but this sounded more serious. "Don't give me that look," Sarah said, and Nathan heard her laugh, a sound both warm and sad. "You always did know how to make me second-guess myself." Nathan moved closer to the door, silent on the plush carpet. Through the gap, he could see Sarah standing by her desk, hands gesturing as she spoke. Her reflection showed in the rain-streaked windows, alone, completely alone. There was no phone to her ear. No laptop open for a video call, no earpiece visible. Sarah Mitchell was having an intense emotional conversation with absolutely no one. Nathan felt a chill run down his spine despite his years of training. He watched as Sarah continued speaking, listening to responses only she could hear, her expressions changing from determination to frustration to something that looked like grief. After several minutes, Sarah seemed to conclude her conversation. She pressed her fingers to her temples, took a deep breath, and sat down at her desk. Only then did Nathan quietly retreat, his mind racing. The next morning, Nathan arrived at Sarah's Belltown penthouse at 6 a.m. sharp. The building was one of Seattle's luxury high-rises, all glass and steel and commanding views of Elliott Bay. Sarah answered the door in workout clothes, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, looking nothing like the woman who'd been having invisible conversations the night before. "Morning, Nathan," she said with a bright smile. "Ready for the morning run? I like to hit the waterfront trail before the city wakes up." "Ready when you are, Ms. Mitchell," Nathan replied, studying her carefully. She looked perfectly normal, alert, composed, professional, no signs of distress or confusion. During their run along the Elliott Bay Trail, Sarah chatted easily about the day's schedule, an upcoming product launch, the persistent Seattle drizzle. She was articulate, focused, completely coherent. Not at all like someone who'd been having conversations with invisible people just 7 hours earlier. Nathan found himself watching her more carefully than he normally would. Sarah Mitchell was 32, brilliant by all accounts. She'd founded Quantum Dynamics at 26 and built it into a company valued at over $2 billion. She had degrees from MIT and Stanford, had been featured on magazine covers, and was known for her innovative approach to cybersecurity. She was also, apparently, talking to people who weren't there. "Something on your mind?" Sarah asked, slowing her pace as they approached the Olympic Sculpture Park. The Space Needle loomed in the distance, shrouded in morning mist. Nathan had been staring. "Just scanning the environment," he said smoothly. "Habit." "I appreciate the vigilance," Sarah said. "Though I have to say, it's a little intense for a morning run. Your father hired me to be intense, Ms. Mitchell." Sarah's expression shifted slightly at the mention of her father, tech veteran William Mitchell, who'd sold his own company for nearly $1 billion and now sat on Quantum Dynamics' board. "He worries too much," she said. "I'm perfectly safe." "He mentioned in our briefing that you're his only child," Nathan said. "That must make the concern even stronger." Something flickered across Sarah's face. So quick, Nathan almost missed it. Pain. Guilt. "Yes," she said quietly. "His only child now." "That's accurate." Before Nathan could ask what she meant, Sarah picked up her pace, clearly ending the conversation. What he didn't say was, "Who are you talking to at midnight when you think you're alone?" The second incident happened 3 nights later. Nathan had started staying later, ostensibly to review security protocols, but really to observe. Sarah worked until at least 11 most nights, often later. She seemed to thrive in the quiet hours after the rest of the staff had gone home. At 12:15 a.m., Nathan heard it again. He was in the security office adjacent to the executive suite, monitoring the cameras. Sarah's office was visible on one of the screens. She was pacing again, and her lips were moving. Nathan switched on the audio feed, something he normally wouldn't do without cause. What he heard made his blood run cold. "I can't do this without you," Sarah was saying, her voice breaking slightly. "I know the risks. I know what we're up against. But I need your guidance. The Patterson deal is falling apart, and if we don't secure that contract..." She stopped, apparently listening to a response. "Yes, I remember what you said about Patterson, that he couldn't be trusted. You were right, as always." Sarah's laugh was bitter. "I should have listened. But we're out of options now. The board is pushing for acquisition talks with TechCore, and if that happens, everything we've worked for, everything you worked for, will be dismantled." TechCore. Nathan knew that name. One of Quantum Dynamics' main competitors, known for aggressive acquisition strategies and asset stripping. "I won't let them destroy your legacy," Sarah said fiercely. "I promise you that, whatever it takes." She stood silent for a long moment, then nodded as if in agreement with someone's advice. "You're right. We go with Plan B. It's risky, but it's all we have left." Nathan watched as Sarah walked to her desk and pulled out a small leather journal from a locked drawer. She opened it, wrote something quickly, then locked it away again. Who was she talking to? And what was Plan B? Over the next week, Nathan began piecing together observations. Sarah's invisible conversations always happened late at night, always when she was alone. She seemed to be discussing business strategy, often referencing someone's past advice or warnings. The tone was intimate, familiar, like talking to someone she trusted implicitly. But there was never anyone there. Nathan did what any good bodyguard would do. He investigated. He reviewed Sarah's file more thoroughly, looking for anything he might have missed. He discovered that Sarah's mentor, Dr. Catherine Reeves, had died in a car accident 2 years ago. Dr. Reeves had been Quantum Dynamics' co-founder and chief technology officer, the brilliant engineer behind their groundbreaking encryption technology. The accident had happened under suspicious circumstances. Dr. Reeves had been on her way to meet with federal investigators about potential corporate espionage when her car went off a bridge during a storm. The official ruling was accidental death, but the investigation had noted several irregularities. Nathan felt pieces clicking into place. Was Sarah having conversations with her dead mentor? Some kind of grief-induced coping mechanism? But that didn't explain the business specifics, the strategic advice, the references to current deals and threats. You couldn't hallucinate information you didn't have. Unless... Nathan's phone buzzed with a message from an old contact in corporate intelligence. He'd reached out asking about Quantum Dynamics, and the response made him pause. "Watch your back with this one. QD has been under investigation by 3-letter agencies for 6 months. Something about classified government contracts and potential security breaches. Mitchell's clean as far as we know, but the company has enemies." Real ones. Nathan stared at the message, then looked back at the security feed showing Sarah's empty office. The pieces weren't adding together the way he expected. He needed to know more. The opportunity came the following week when Sarah had to fly to San Francisco for an investor meeting. Nathan accompanied her, as always, maintaining his professional distance while watching everything. On the flight back, turbulence hit hard over the Oregon mountains. The small private jet bucked and shuddered, and Nathan saw Sarah's knuckles turn white as she gripped the armrest. "You okay?" he asked, breaking his usual silence. Sarah's face was pale. "I hate flying in weather like this. Ever since—" She stopped herself. "Since Dr. Reeves?" Nathan said gently. Sarah's eyes snapped to his, surprise and something else, wariness, flickering across her features. "You've done your homework." "It's my job to know potential threats and vulnerabilities. Catherine's death wasn't—" Sarah stopped again, seeming to choose her words carefully. "It was ruled an accident, just like the other accident. When I was 17. Her voice had gone very quiet. "I don't remember much about that one. Head injury. But Catherine's? That I'll never forget." "But you don't believe that," Nathan said. It wasn't a question. The plane shuddered again, and Sarah closed her eyes. "What I believe doesn't matter. The investigation is closed." "Is that who you talk to?" Nathan asked, his voice low. "At night, in your office. Are you talking to Dr. Reeves?" Sarah's eyes flew open, and Nathan saw genuine fear there. "You've been spying on me? I've been doing my job. Protecting you includes knowing when something's wrong." "Nothing's wrong," Sarah said quickly. Too quickly. "Ms. Mitchell, Sarah, if you're experiencing some kind of psychological distress—" "I'm not crazy," Sarah interrupted, her voice sharp. "Is that what you think? That I'm having a breakdown? I think you're under enormous pressure. I think you lost someone important to you under traumatic circumstances, and I think you're carrying something heavy that you won't let anyone help you with." Sarah stared at him for a long moment, the plane still shaking around them. Then, to Nathan's surprise, she laughed. A real laugh, though there was no humor in it. "You want to know who I'm talking to, Nathan? You want to know the truth?" "Yes." Sarah leaned closer, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "I'm talking to a recording, a series of recordings that Catherine made before she passed away. She knew something was going to happen to her. She knew there were people who wanted quantum dynamics technology for the wrong reasons. So she left me instructions, strategic advice, warnings, contingency plans, all on encrypted audio files that only I can access." Nathan felt his understanding of the situation shift dramatically. "Recordings?" "I play them through an earpiece," Sarah explained, touching her ear. Nathan noticed for the first time the tiny, flesh-colored device nearly invisible against her skin. "It's connected to my phone via a secure channel. When I'm working late and facing a difficult decision, I play Catherine's relevant recordings. It helps me think through problems the way she would have." "So you're not—" Nathan trailed off. "Having conversations with a ghost?" "No." Sarah's smile was sad. "Though sometimes it feels that way. Catherine anticipated so many scenarios, left me guidance for so many contingencies. It's almost like she's still here, still helping me navigate. Why the secrecy? Why not just say you're listening to recordings?" Sarah's expression hardened. "Because Catherine was taken from us, Nathan. Make no mistake about that. Her accident wasn't an accident. She was silenced because she discovered that someone on Quantum Dynamics' board was planning to sell our technology to a foreign entity. She was going to expose them, and they stopped her." Nathan felt the weight of what she was telling him. "Do you know who?" "I have suspicions. That's what the recordings help with. Catherine left me clues, evidence she'd gathered. But I can't move against them without proof. And if they knew I had Catherine's recordings, had her evidence—" Sarah didn't finish the sentence. "They'd come after you," Nathan completed, "which is why my father hired you. He doesn't know about the recordings, but he knows there's danger. He can feel it, even if he doesn't understand the full picture." The plane began its descent into Seattle, the turbulence easing. Nathan processed everything Sarah had told him, his protective instincts shifting into higher gear. This wasn't about a client with psychological issues. This was about a client in very real, very serious danger. "I need to hear these recordings," Nathan said. "If I'm going to protect you properly, I need to understand what we're really dealing with." Sarah studied him for a long moment, clearly weighing trust against security. Finally, she nodded. "Tonight, after everyone else leaves, I'll show you everything." That night, in Sarah's office with Seattle's lights glittering below, Nathan learned the truth. Sarah played him selections from Catherine Reeves's recordings. The late engineer's voice was clear, methodical, urgent. "Sarah, if you're hearing this, something has happened to me. The pattern is too clear to ignore. 3 suspicious accidents involving people who discovered the board irregularities. I won't be silent, but I need you to be smart. Don't trust anyone on the board except your father. The leak is coming from inside." Another recording, dated a week before Catherine's death. "I've traced the offshore accounts. Board member Thomas Drake has been receiving payments from Zenith Corp. That's a front for foreign intelligence. He's been stealing our encryption protocols, planning to hand them over once he orchestrates a takeover. I'm meeting with the FBI tomorrow. If anything happens to me, the evidence is in our agreed location. You know where." Nathan listened to several more recordings, each one more damning than the last. Catherine had documented everything: financial transfers, suspicious meetings, coded emails. She'd been building a case against Drake, and she'd been eliminated for it. "Where's the evidence she mentions?" Nathan asked. "That's the problem," Sarah admitted. "I don't know. She said our agreed location, but we never discussed a specific hiding place. I've spent 2 years searching. I've been through her apartment, her office, her research notes. I've tried every location that meant something to both of us. Nothing. And in the meantime? In the meantime, Drake is still on the board, still working to push through this acquisition by TechCore. If that happens, he'll sell off our technology piecemeal, and Catherine's encryption protocols, which she designed to protect government communications, will end up in the wrong hands. National security will be compromised, and Catherine's death will have been for nothing." Nathan stood and walked to the windows, looking out at Seattle's rainy night. This changed everything. He wasn't just protecting a client from standard threats. He was protecting someone who was single-handedly trying to prevent a catastrophic security breach while being hunted by people with vast resources. "You need to go to the FBI," he said. "Let them handle Drake." With what evidence? Catherine's recordings would be dismissed as hearsay. Without the hard evidence she gathered, I have nothing that would stand up legally. Drake would lawyer up, and I'd end up looking like a conspiracy theorist. "Then we find the evidence," Nathan said, turning back to her. "We? You hired me to protect you. I can't do that if I don't understand the full threat. So yes, we. Let's find what Catherine left behind and finish what she started." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, the first real emotion Nathan had seen her show beyond her midnight conversations. "Why would you help me? This isn't your fight." "Because Catherine was right. This matters. And because you're not alone in this anymore." Over the next 3 weeks, Nathan and Sarah became partners in investigation. During the day, Nathan maintained his role as professional bodyguard, accompanying Sarah to meetings and events. But at night, they searched. They revisited every location Catherine had frequented. They decoded references in her recordings, looking for hidden meanings. Nathan used his contacts in intelligence and security to dig deeper into Drake's activities, building a parallel case. They also grew closer. Working together late into the night, sharing takeout over encrypted files and audio analysis, Sarah and Nathan developed a trust that went beyond client and protector. "Tell me about your family," Sarah said one night around 2 a.m. as they pored over Catherine's research notes in yet another fruitless search. "My family?" Nathan looked up from the documents. "Why?" "Because I've told you my entire life story at this point, and I barely know anything about you beyond your resume." Nathan smiled slightly. "Fair enough. I grew up in Montana. My dad was a sheriff, mom was a nurse. Learned early about service, about protecting people." "Any siblings?" "A sister. She's a doctor in Denver. We don't talk as much as we should. Why not? Nathan was quiet for a moment. She thinks I took the safe road, protecting rich people instead of serving my country or helping communities that really need it. She's not entirely wrong. You're keeping me safe, Sarah pointed out. Keeping quantum dynamics technology out of the wrong hands. That serves the country. Does it? Or am I just helping one billionaire keep her company? You know it's more than that, Sarah said softly. You've seen Catherine's evidence. You know what's at stake. Nathan nodded, but doubt still lingered in his expression. Sarah set down the file she'd been reading and moved closer. For what it's worth, she said, I think you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Catherine used to say that the right people show up at the right time, if you're paying attention. You showed up, Nathan, and you're helping save something important. Their eyes met, and Nathan felt something shift between them. This wasn't client and bodyguard anymore. This was two people fighting together for something that mattered, trusting each other with their lives. We should get back to work, Nathan said, but he didn't look away. We should, Sarah agreed, but neither of them moved. The moment broke when Sarah's phone buzzed with an alert. She glanced at it, and her expression changed to alarm. What is it? Nathan asked. Security alert at Catherine's old research lab. Someone just accessed it using her credentials. That's impossible. She's been gone for 2 years. Exactly. Sarah was already grabbing her coat. Someone's using her access codes. Either they've been activated remotely or someone found her evidence and is trying to cover their tracks, Nathan finished. We need to get there now. The research lab was in a converted warehouse in Georgetown, Seattle's industrial district. At 3 a.m., the streets were empty, rain falling steadily. Nathan drove while Sarah monitored security feeds on her phone. I'm seeing movement on the 3rd floor, she reported. The encryption research wing. How many people? Hard to tell. The cameras keep glitching. Nathan's instincts were screaming. This could be a trap. Or it could be our only chance to catch whoever took Catherine from us and find the evidence. Sarah looked at him. I'm going in. You don't have to. Like hell I don't, Nathan replied, pulling into the warehouse parking lot. They entered through a side access, Nathan leading with his weapon drawn. The building was dark except for emergency lighting. Their footsteps echoed on concrete as they climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. The encryption lab had been Catherine's domain, a massive space filled with server banks, workstations, and prototypes. Now it looked like it had been ransacked. Files were scattered, equipment overturned. Someone was looking for something, Sarah whispered. A sound from the far end of the lab made them both freeze. Nathan positioned himself in front of Sarah, scanning the darkness. A figure emerged from the shadows. Thomas Drake, Quantum Dynamics board member. He was holding a hard drive, his expression showing surprise at seeing them. Sarah, he said, his voice carefully controlled. What are you doing here at this hour? I could ask you the same thing, Thomas, Sarah replied, and Nathan heard the steel in her voice. Especially since you're holding what looks like proprietary research. I received an alert about a security breach. I was investigating. Using Catherine's credentials? Nathan interjected. Drake's eyes narrowed, focusing on Nathan for the first time. Who are you? Head of Ms. Mitchell's security, and you didn't answer the question. I don't have to answer to a bodyguard, Drake said dismissively. He looked back at Sarah. This is company business. I suggest you and your employee leave. That hard drive, Sarah said, ignoring his suggestion. That's Catherine's personal research backup, isn't it? The one that went missing after her death. Drake's mask slipped slightly. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. Catherine documented everything, Thomas. I know about Zenith Corp. I know about the payments. I know you eliminated her to cover it up. You can't prove any of that, Drake said, but his hand tightened on the hard drive. Actually, Nathan said, we can. You just confessed to knowing about the hard drive before she mentioned it was missing. That's not public information. Drake's face hardened. He reached into his jacket, and Nathan's weapon came up instantly. Don't, Nathan commanded. You're going to shoot a board member? Drake laughed. How do you think that will look? Better than letting you leave with evidence of treason, Sarah said. The standoff lasted for several tense seconds. Then Drake made a calculation. He threw the hard drive at Sarah and ran for the emergency exit. Nathan started to pursue, but Sarah called him back. Let him go! The drive! Get the drive! Nathan pivoted, catching the hard drive before it could hit the ground. Drake's footsteps echoed down the emergency stairs, then faded into the Seattle night. Sarah was on her phone immediately, calling her father, calling the FBI contacts Catherine had been working with before her death. Nathan secured the lab while she made the calls, his mind racing. They had the evidence, but Drake was loose, and he knew they had it. The next 72 hours were a blur of federal agents, interviews, and security protocols. The hard drive contained everything Catherine had gathered: financial records, communications, even video of Drake meeting with Zenith Corp operatives. It was enough to arrest Drake and dismantle the entire operation. The FBI moved quickly. Drake was taken into custody attempting to flee the country. 2 other Quantum Dynamics board members were implicated and resigned. The story hit the news, carefully controlled to protect national security details, but transparent enough to show Quantum Dynamics had rooted out corruption. Through it all, Nathan stayed by Sarah's side, not just as her bodyguard, but as her partner, her support, her anchor in the chaos. On the 4th day after Drake's arrest, Sarah and Nathan stood in her office late at night, the scene of so many midnight conversations. Sarah held a small device in her hand, Catherine's final recording queued up. I haven't listened to this one yet, she told Nathan. It's dated the day before she died. I've been afraid to hear it. Do you want me to leave? Nathan asked. No. Stay, please. Sarah pressed play, and Catherine's voice filled the room. Sarah, if you're listening to this, then I'm gone. I'm so sorry I couldn't stay to help you finish this fight, but I know you, and I know you'll figure it out. You're brilliant, determined, and stronger than you realize. The evidence you need is in our place, the place where we had our breakthrough, where we first understood what we were building together. You'll know it when you remember. Trust yourself. And Sarah, don't spend your life looking backward. I was so focused on my work that I forgot to truly live. Don't make my mistake. Build the company, protect the technology, but also let yourself be happy. Let yourself be loved. You deserve that. I'm proud of you. I'll always be proud of you. Now finish this and then go live. The recording ended. Sarah wiped tears from her face, then laughed through them. The breakthrough, she said. I know where she means. Nathan, I know where the rest of the evidence is. But Nathan shook his head. You already found it. That hard drive had everything needed to put Drake away. Catherine led you exactly where you needed to be, exactly when you needed to be there. Sarah looked at the device in her hand, then at Nathan. She wanted me to be happy, to be loved. She wanted you to live, Nathan confirmed. I've been so focused on finishing her work, on honoring her legacy, that I forgot. Sarah trailed off. Forgot what? Forgot that I'm still here, still living. Sarah set down the device and stepped closer to Nathan. And I don't want to do it alone anymore. Nathan reached out, gently touching her face. You don't have to. They kissed, a culmination of weeks of trust, danger, and partnership. It wasn't dramatic or desperate. It was real, solid, the beginning of something built on truth. 6 months later, Quantum Dynamics held a memorial ceremony for Catherine Reeves. Sarah unveiled a new innovation center named in her honor, designed to continue Catherine's work in cybersecurity and ethical technology development. Nathan stood beside Sarah as she gave the dedication speech, no longer just her bodyguard, but her partner in every sense. They'd learned to balance their relationship with his professional duties, both of them aware that the threats to Quantum Dynamics hadn't ended with Drake's arrest, but they faced them together. Catherine believed that technology should serve humanity, not control it, Sarah told the assembled crowd. She believed that the right people show up at the right time if we're paying attention, and she believed that even in our darkest moments, we're not alone. After the ceremony, Sarah and Nathan stood in the new Innovation Center, looking at Catherine's portrait on the wall. "Thank you," Sarah said quietly. Whether to Catherine or Nathan or both, it wasn't clear. Nathan took her hand. "She'd be proud of you, of what you've built, what you've protected." "We've protected," Sarah corrected. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." "Partners?" Nathan asked with a slight smile. "Partners," Sarah confirmed. As they left the center, walking into Seattle's persistent drizzle, Nathan reflected on how much had changed since that first midnight conversation he'd overheard. He'd thought he was protecting a client having some kind of breakdown. Instead, he'd found a woman fighting a war for something bigger than herself, and he'd fallen in love with her courage. Sarah, meanwhile, had finally finished the work Catherine had started. She'd exposed the corruption, protected the technology, and saved her mentor's legacy. But more than that, she'd learned Catherine's final lesson, that protecting what matters also means allowing yourself to live, to trust, to love. The mystery that had seemed so unsettling, the midnight conversations, the invisible companion, had led to truth, justice, and something neither Sarah nor Nathan had expected to find: each other. Years later, when people asked Nathan about the Mitchell case, he always smiled and said the same thing. She wasn't talking to herself. She was talking to the truth. And sometimes, the truth talks back. Sarah and Nathan married 2 years after Drake's arrest, in a small ceremony attended by close friends and family. Sarah wore a necklace that had belonged to Catherine, a gift from her mentor years ago, engraved with a simple phrase, "Truth protects." On their wedding night, Sarah played one final Catherine recording that she'd kept private. Nathan listened as Catherine's voice shared one last piece of wisdom. "Sarah, by the time you hear this, I hope you've found someone who sees you. Not the CEO, not the billionaire's daughter, not the genius engineer. Just you. Hold on to that person. Trust them with your truth, and build a life together that honors both the fight and the peace. You taught me that technology could change the world. Let someone teach you that love can too." Nathan pulled Sarah close as the recording ended. "She knew," he said. "She knew you'd find someone." "She knew I'd find you," Sarah corrected. "The right person at the right time." They built a life together that balanced danger and normalcy, work and rest, mission and joy. Nathan eventually transitioned from bodyguard to chief security officer at Quantum Dynamics, his expertise helping shape the company's approach to protecting both its technology and its people. Sarah continued to lead Quantum Dynamics to new heights, but she also learned to leave the office at reasonable hours, to take vacations, to prioritize the life she was building with Nathan over the endless demands of business. And sometimes, late at night when facing a particularly difficult decision, Sarah still played Catherine's recordings. But now Nathan was there beside her, a real presence to discuss and debate with, someone who understood both the weight she carried and the woman she was beneath it. The mystery that had begun with midnight conversations ended with truth, justice, and love, proving that sometimes the most important discoveries aren't made in laboratories or boardrooms, but in the moments when we let someone see us, truly see us, and they choose to stay. Continuation. 3000. Additional words with plot twists. But the story didn't end with their wedding. 3 years into their marriage, a new mystery emerged that would test everything Sarah and Nathan had built together. It started with a seemingly innocent discovery. Nathan was reviewing security footage from Quantum Dynamics' Singapore office when he noticed something odd. A woman had been captured on camera entering the building using Sarah's biometric credentials, but Sarah had been in Seattle that entire week. "Sarah, you need to see this," Nathan called from his home office one evening. Sarah came in, still in her work clothes from a board meeting. She leaned over his shoulder to watch the footage. The woman on screen had Sarah's build, her hair color, even her walk. But when she turned toward the camera, Sarah's blood ran cold. "That's impossible," Sarah whispered. "You know her?" Nathan asked, noting the shock in his wife's voice. "That's Emily, my twin sister." Nathan turned to stare at Sarah. You're what? Sarah sank into the chair beside him, her face pale. I haven't seen her in 15 years. I thought she was dead. The revelation hung in the air like a bomb. Nathan knew Sarah's family history. Only child, mother died when she was young, raised by her tech mogul father. That had always been the story. Start from the beginning, Nathan said gently, taking her hand. Sarah took a shaky breath. Emily and I were separated when we were 17. My father, he made a choice. He could only afford to send one of us to MIT. He chose me. Emily was furious. She said I was always his favorite, that I got everything while she got nothing. She ran away before graduation. I tried to find her for years, but it was like she vanished. And you never told me? Nathan's voice held hurt, but also understanding. Everyone had their secrets. I couldn't. My father made me promise never to speak about her. He said it would complicate things, that competitors would use it against us. Eventually, I convinced myself she really was gone, that I'd never see her again. Sarah looked at the frozen frame on screen. But there she is, using my credentials, inside my company. Nathan's protective instincts kicked into overdrive. If she has your biometric data, she could access everything. Client files, encryption protocols, financial systems. Catherine's research? Sarah added, her eyes widening with horror. Nathan, what if Emily is working with whoever's trying to steal our technology? What if Drake wasn't the only threat? The next morning, Nathan activated a full security audit of all quantum dynamics facilities worldwide. What he discovered was chilling. Emily had been accessing systems for months, always during Sarah's known absences, always careful to avoid detection. She'd downloaded terabytes of data, including Catherine's complete research archive. But the biggest shock came when Nathan traced Emily's digital footprint to a shell company called Helix Technologies. When he dug deeper into Helix's ownership structure, one name appeared that made his stomach drop. William Mitchell, Sarah's father. This doesn't make sense, Sarah said when Nathan showed her the evidence. They were in their home's secure room, surrounded by monitors displaying the paper trail. Why would my father fund Emily's company? Why help her steal from quantum dynamics? Unless he's not helping her steal, Nathan said slowly, pieces clicking together. What if he's been funding her this whole time? What if the story about only being able to send one daughter to school was a lie? Sarah's phone rang. Her father's name appeared on the screen. She and Nathan exchanged a look before she answered, putting it on speaker. Sarah, we need to talk. William Mitchell's voice was grave. It's about Emily. I know she's alive, Dad. I know about Helix Technologies. I know you've been funding her. There was a long pause. Then you need to come to the house, both of you. There are things you need to understand before you make any decisions about your sister. An hour later, Sarah and Nathan sat in William Mitchell's study in his Medina waterfront estate. The 70-year-old tech veteran looked tired, older than Nathan had ever seen him. I never wanted you to find out this way, William began, but Emily forced my hand. She's escalating. Escalating what? Sarah demanded. Dad, what is going on? William pulled out a thick file and slid it across his desk. Emily didn't run away at 17. I sent her away, to a private facility in Switzerland. Sarah opened the file, and Nathan watched her face go white as she read. Medical records, psychiatric evaluations, diagnosis after diagnosis. Emily has antisocial personality disorder, William continued. She's brilliant, as smart as you, maybe smarter in some ways. But she lacks empathy, remorse. When you were teenagers, she tried to harm you, Sarah. She pushed you down the stairs at school. You don't remember because you had a severe concussion, but that's when I knew I had to separate you. You lied to me, Sarah said, her voice shaking. All these years you let me believe, I let you believe she was gone because she needed to be gone. I've spent 15 years funding treatment, therapy, medication management. I created Helix Technologies to give her a purpose, something to focus her brilliance on that wouldn't hurt anyone. But it didn't work, Nathan interjected. She's stealing from quantum dynamics. She's not stealing, William said quietly. She's trying to destroy it. Emily believes that Sarah stole her life. In her mind, everything Sarah has achieved should have been hers. Helix Technologies was supposed to satisfy her need to compete, but it's not enough. She wants to take Sarah down. Nathan felt Sarah trembling beside him. He put his arm around her shoulders, anchoring her as her world collapsed and reformed around this new reality. The technology she's downloaded, Sarah managed to ask. What is she planning to do with it? I don't know, William admitted. She cut off contact 3 months ago, stopped taking my calls, locked me out of Helix's systems. I've been trying to track her, trying to prevent whatever she's planning. But she's always been better at hiding than I am at finding. Catherine, Sarah said suddenly, looking at Nathan. What if Emily had something to do with Catherine's death? Dad, you said Emily tried to harm me once. What if she tried again, but Catherine was in the way? The room went silent as they all processed the implication. Drake had been convicted of causing Catherine's death, but what if he'd been working with Emily? What if there was a larger conspiracy? Nathan's phone buzzed with an alert from Quantum Dynamics' security system. He looked at the notification and felt ice flood his veins. Sarah, someone just accessed your personal server at home, using your credentials, right now. They raced back to Belltown, Nathan driving while Sarah remotely locked down their home systems. But when they burst into their penthouse, they found it empty. Nothing seemed disturbed. Nothing except Sarah's personal office, where her computer was still running, a message displayed on the screen. Hello, sister. Did you enjoy learning the truth? Don't worry. I'll help you understand everything soon. You took my life. Now I'm taking yours. Starting with what you love most. What you love most, Nathan repeated, dread building. He looked at Sarah. Where's your father? They called William's number, no answer. Called his security team, no response. Raced back to Medina to find his house dark, his security system disabled, and William Mitchell gone. Emily had taken him. The next 3 days were a nightmare. Emily sent videos. William tied to a chair in an undisclosed location, looking terrified but unharmed. Her demands were simple. Sarah had to publicly confess that she'd stolen Emily's research, sabotaged Emily's life, and built Quantum Dynamics on lies. She had to resign as CEO and transfer control of the company to Emily, and she had to do it within 72 hours, or William would die. She's insane, Sarah said, watching the latest video for the 100th time. They were in Quantum Dynamics Crisis Command Center, surrounded by FBI agents, private investigators, and security specialists. She actually believes her own delusions. Delusions grounded in real pain, Nathan pointed out gently. Your father made a choice that split your lives in two. She's not right to do this, but I understand why she's broken. So what do we do? I can't give her my company. Even if I wanted to, the board would never allow it. And I can't let her harm my father. Nathan had been thinking about this since the moment Emily revealed herself. An idea had been forming, risky and potentially explosive, but it might be their only option. We give her what she really wants, he said, which is you. She doesn't actually want quantum dynamics. She wants the life you have, the recognition, the success, the father who chose you. Nathan pulled up a tactical map on the main screen. So we let her think she's won. Over the next 24 hours, Nathan and Sarah orchestrated an elaborate deception. Sarah filmed a public confession, reading a script that admitted to lies and manipulation, all complete fiction, but convincing enough to satisfy Emily's demands. The confession was leaked to select media outlets, creating exactly the scandal Emily wanted. Behind the scenes, Nathan worked with the FBI to trace Emily's location through the video transmissions. She was careful, routing through multiple servers, but everyone makes mistakes when they think they're winning. And Emily was so focused on watching Sarah's public destruction that she didn't notice the digital trail she was leaving. They found her in an abandoned tech facility in Tacoma, one of William Mitchell's old properties that had been scheduled for demolition. It was perfect. Isolated, familiar to Emily from childhood, and far enough from Seattle to give her a sense of security. The FBI wanted to move in with a full tactical team, but Nathan convinced them to let him try first. Emily was unstable but not stupid. A heavy assault would likely result in William's death. So Nathan went in alone, wearing a wire and carrying nothing but his words. He found Emily in what used to be a testing lab, William still tied to a chair but alive and alert. Emily herself was at a bank of computers, watching news coverage of Sarah's confession with satisfaction. "Hello, Emily," Nathan said, announcing his presence. Emily spun around, a gun appearing in her hand with practiced ease. "Nathan Cross, the loyal bodyguard, here to rescue the damsel's father?" Nathan's eyes went to William Mitchell, bound to a chair with a device strapped to his chest, a timer counting down. Red digital numbers, 8:47, 8:46, 8:45. "You have less than 9 minutes, Emily said, following his gaze. "That's a shaped charge, enough to level this room. So, yes, let's talk quickly, shall we?" "Actually, I'm here to make you an offer." That got her attention. Nathan could see the resemblance to Sarah now, same facial structure, same intensity in the eyes. But where Sarah's intensity came from passion and determination, Emily's came from something colder, more calculating. "What kind of offer?" Emily asked, the gun still pointed at Nathan's chest. Behind her, the timer continued its relentless countdown. 7:58. 7:57. "Sarah is destroyed. Her reputation, her company, her legacy, all gone. You won." Nathan moved slowly closer, hands visible, acutely aware of each second ticking away. "But you're right that you got cheated. Your father made a choice that wasn't fair. You deserved better." "I deserved everything she got," Emily said bitterly. The timer read 7:12. "I was smarter, more driven, but I was born second, so I got nothing." "You got your father's brilliance," Nathan countered, forcing himself to stay calm as precious seconds evaporated. "Sarah told me once that you were the better engineer. Catherine Reeves said the same thing in her recordings. She'd met you years ago at a tech conference and said you had insights even Sarah lacked." Emily's expression flickered with surprise. "Catherine said that?" The timer, 6:33. "She did, and she was right. The technology you've developed at Helix, I've seen it. It's revolutionary, more advanced than anything quantum dynamics has produced." "So?" Emily said, but Nathan could hear the need in her voice, the need to be recognized, valued, seen. The timer, 5:47. "So you don't need quantum dynamics. You don't need Sarah's company or her reputation. You need your own." Nathan pulled out a tablet with one hand while watching the countdown, 4:58, showing Emily documents he'd prepared. "Your father set up a trust fund for you years ago. $50 million untouched. Take it. Take Helix Technologies. Build something that's purely yours. Prove that you're better than Sarah by succeeding on your own terms." "Why would you help me?" Emily asked suspiciously. "I kidnapped your father-in-law." 4:15. "Because you're sick, Emily. Not evil. Sick. And I think if you got the help you need, the medication and therapy that actually works for you, you could do incredible things." Nathan gestured to William, whose eyes were locked on the timer. 3:42. "Your father failed you, but he's been trying to make it right for 15 years. Don't throw away your life over choices he made when you were kids." Emily's gun hand started to shake. The timer hit 3. "Wow. She took everything from me." "No," Nathan said gently, stepping closer despite the gun and the ticking clock. 2:41. "A disease took things from you, a disorder you were born with. Sarah was just the target you picked because she was there. But Emily, you can still have a life. You're only 32. You're brilliant. You could change the world if you chose to." 2:15. 2:13. 2:13. For a long moment, Emily stood frozen, torn between the revenge she'd planned and the life Nathan was offering. Nathan could see the moment she made her decision. Her shoulders sagged, the gun lowered. "I'm so tired," she whispered. "I'm so tired of being angry." The timer read 1:47 when Emily pulled a small remote from her pocket and pressed a button. The countdown stopped. William gasped with relief. It was a bluff anyway, Emily admitted quietly. The device is real, but the detonator was never connected. I wanted to see if anyone would actually risk themselves for him. For me. Her voice cracked. And you did. Nathan carefully approached and took the gun from her unresisting hand. Behind him, FBI agents began entering the facility to secure the scene, their tactical teams freezing when they saw the device on William's chest before Emily raised her hands, showing them the disabled detonator. But the story still had one more twist. As Nathan freed William and FBI agents moved to take Emily into custody, she suddenly lunged for one of her computers. Nathan moved to stop her, but she held up a hand. Wait, I need to show you something. About Catherine Reeves. Everyone froze. Emily pulled up files on her computer, surveillance footage, private investigation reports, technical analysis. I didn't harm Catherine, Emily said, her voice desperate. But I know who did. It wasn't Drake. He paid someone else to do it. Someone inside Quantum Dynamics who's still there. She played a video that showed Catherine's car accident from a different angle than the police had. In the footage, another vehicle was clearly visible, forcing Catherine's car off the road. The license plate was traceable to a Quantum Dynamics company vehicle. Who? Sarah demanded. She'd arrived with FBI backup, standing in the doorway. The two sisters locked eyes for the first time in 15 years. Emily pulled up personnel files. Your CFO, Mitchell Brennan. Drake paid him $2 million to make Catherine's death look like an accident. Brennan knew Catherine's roots, her schedule. He was the inside man. And he's still sitting on your board, Sarah, still making decisions about your company. The room erupted in activity as FBI agents verified Emily's evidence. Nathan looked between the two sisters, Sarah, the successful CEO who'd built an empire while haunted by secrets, and Emily, the brilliant engineer who'd let pain twist her into someone she didn't have to be. Nathan's mind processed the full picture. Drake was the mastermind who orchestrated everything from the shadows. Brennan was his weapon, the man who actually carried out Catherine's death. And Emily? She was the unpredictable force who'd nearly destroyed them all before choosing redemption instead. Why? Sarah asked Emily. Why help us now? Emily's smile was sad. Because Catherine was kind to me once. At that tech conference Nathan mentioned. She talked to me like I mattered, like I had value. She was one of the only people who ever did. Emily paused. And because Nathan's right, I'm tired of being the villain in someone else's story. I want to write my own. Mitchell Brennan was arrested that night. The evidence Emily provided, gathered during her months infiltrating Quantum Dynamics, was enough to connect him to Catherine's death. Drake had hired him, but Brennan had been the one who carried it out. Emily was offered a plea deal, psychiatric evaluation and treatment instead of prison time for the kidnapping. She accepted. William Mitchell tearfully promised to actually be a father this time, to help Emily get the help she needed without controlling her life. And Sarah, standing in Nathan's arms as they watched Emily being led away by medical professionals instead of police, finally understood something. Catherine was right, she said softly. The right people show up at the right time, even when those people are the ones we thought were our enemies. Emily could have let Brennan get away with it, Nathan pointed out. She chose to help instead. That's who she really is under the disorder. 5 years later, Quantum Dynamics and Helix Technologies announced a partnership. Emily Mitchell, now stable on medication and continuing therapy, had developed breakthrough quantum encryption that complemented Sarah's cybersecurity protocols. Together, the sisters were creating technology that would protect communications worldwide. Nathan watched from the audience as Sarah and Emily took the stage at the launch event, side by side. It had been a long road, years of supervised meetings, family therapy, rebuilding trust atom by atom. But they'd done it. After the presentation, Nathan and Sarah stood on the balcony of their hotel, looking out at Seattle's night skyline. Did you ever imagine it would end this way? Sarah asked. When you first heard me talking to Catherine's recordings? I imagined protecting you from danger, Nathan replied. I didn't imagine the danger would lead to healing your family and discovering your sister was alive. Life is strange, Sarah said, leaning into him. It is. But I prefer strange and real to simple and fake. Sarah turned to face him, love and gratitude shining in her eyes. Catherine's final lesson. What's that? That sometimes the truth we're running from is the truth that will save us, and sometimes the monsters we're fighting are just people who need to be seen. Nathan kissed her softly. Here's to seeing each other. All of ourselves. The good, the broken, and everything in between. As they headed back inside, Sarah glanced at her phone and smiled. A message from Emily. Thank you for not giving up on me. I'm proud to be your sister. Igofrisen. The mystery that began with midnight conversations had unfolded into something far more complex than Nathan could have imagined. Corporate espionage, family secrets, mental illness, intentional harm, and ultimately, redemption. But at its core, it had always been about the same thing. People trying to be seen, to matter, to connect. And in the end, that's exactly what they'd found. What did you think of Sarah and Nathan's story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. How would you rate this mystery from 0 to 10? If this story kept you guessing until the end, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more compelling narratives. Thank you for being part of this journey with us. Epilogue. 10 years later. The Catherine Reeves Memorial Conference Hall was packed with over 2,000 attendees, engineers, entrepreneurs, students, and security professionals from around the world. The annual Quantum Helix Summit had become the premier event in cybersecurity, a celebration of innovation that honored the woman whose death had sparked a revolution in ethical technology. Nathan stood backstage, adjusting his tie. At 48, he'd transitioned from active security work to teaching, now running executive protection training programs that emphasized not just physical safety, but the kind of trust and partnership he'd built with Sarah. "Dad, you're going to do great," said a voice beside him. Nathan turned to see his daughter, Catherine, named after the mentor her mother had loved, standing there with an encouraging smile. At 7 years old, Katie already showed signs of inheriting both her mother's brilliance and her Aunt Emily's unconventional thinking. "Thanks, sweetheart," Nathan said, kneeling to her level. "You remember what we talked about?" "That sometimes the scariest things turn out to be the most important," Katie recited, "and that asking questions is always better than making assumptions. That's my girl." Sarah appeared in the doorway, looking radiant at 42. She'd stepped down as Quantum Dynamics CEO 3 years ago, transitioning to an advisory role that gave her time to focus on family, mentorship, and the foundation she'd established in Catherine Reeves's name. "Ready?" she asked Nathan, taking his hand. "As I'll ever be." Together, they walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. The audience knew their story. It had become legendary in tech circles. The bodyguard who'd thought his client was having a breakdown. The CEO who'd listened to recordings of her dead mentor. The sister who'd returned from the shadows. The father who'd made impossible choices. And the love that had grown from trust built in the darkest moments. But what the audience didn't know were the intimate details Nathan was about to share. 10 years ago, Nathan began, his voice carrying across the hall, I stood outside an office door and heard my client talking to someone who wasn't there. My training told me this was a red flag, a sign of psychological distress. But something stopped me from simply reporting it and walking away. He glanced at Sarah, who smiled encouragement. That something was curiosity. Not the kind that assumes we already know the answer, but the kind that asks questions. What if there's more to this story? What if what looks like weakness is actually strength? What if the person I'm supposed to protect knows something I don't? Nathan paused, letting the words settle. We live in a world that values quick judgments. We see something unusual and immediately categorize it, explain it away, reduce it to something we can understand. But the truth is almost always more complex than our first impression, and if we don't pause to ask questions, we miss the real story. He gestured to where Emily sat in the front row, beside their father, William. Emily's journey hadn't been easy. There had been setbacks, medication adjustments, moments of crisis. But she was here, thriving, contributing, building technology that mattered. My wife was talking to recordings because she was trying to finish work that her mentor started. My sister-in-law was stealing information because she was trying to find evidence of a crime. My father-in-law was funding a secret company because he was trying to save a daughter everyone else had given up on. Nathan's voice grew stronger, more passionate. None of it made sense at first. All of it looked suspicious, dangerous, wrong. But when I stopped assuming and started asking questions, when I chose to trust before I had all the answers, I discovered something remarkable. I discovered that people are fighting battles we know nothing about. And sometimes, our job isn't to fix them or save them or even understand them. Sometimes our job is just to stand beside them and say, "I'm here. I see you. Keep going." The audience was completely silent, hanging on every word. Catherine Reeves left my wife recordings not because she wanted to control things from beyond the grave, but because she knew Sarah would need a voice reminding her that she wasn't alone. Emily infiltrated quantum dynamics not just for revenge, but because she was trying to solve a crime that everyone else had forgotten about. And I married Sarah not because I saved her, but because she taught me that protection isn't about keeping people in boxes where they're safe. It's about giving them the freedom to be fully themselves, even when that's terrifying. Nathan looked directly at Katie, who was watching from the wings with William. We named our daughter Catherine because my wife's mentor taught us that the right people show up at the right time if we're paying attention. But here's what I've learned in 10 years of marriage, fatherhood, and partnership with the most extraordinary woman I've ever met. The right people are often the ones who don't make sense at first, the ones who challenge us, confuse us, force us to question our assumptions. He turned to Sarah, who stood and joined him at center stage. "This woman was talking to recordings at midnight," Nathan said, putting his arm around her. "And instead of calling a psychiatrist, I asked her why. That single question changed my life. It gave me a family, a purpose, and an understanding that the mysteries we're most afraid of are often the truths we most need to discover." Sarah took the microphone, her voice warm with emotion. 10 years ago, I was so focused on honoring my mentor's legacy that I forgot I was still living. Nathan reminded me that Catherine didn't leave me recordings so I could hide behind them. She left them so I could find my own voice. And she was right, about everything. About the threats we faced, about the people we could trust, and about love being worth the risk. She looked out at the audience, her eyes finding Emily. My sister and I lost 15 years because of choices made in fear and pain. But we got a second chance because one person asked questions instead of making assumptions. Because one person chose to see possibility in what everyone else called impossible. Sarah's voice grew stronger. That's Catherine's real legacy. Not the technology she built, but the reminder that we're all more than our worst moments, our biggest fears, our most complicated truths. And when we give each other space to be complex, messy, and real, that's when we build something that lasts. The applause started slowly, then built into a standing ovation that lasted nearly 3 minutes. Nathan and Sarah stood together, hands clasped, as the audience celebrated not just their story, but the principle it represented, that truth protects, that questions matter, and that love built on authentic seeing is the strongest force in the world. Later that night, at their home in Belltown, Nathan found Sarah on their terrace, the same terrace where she'd once paced while talking to Catherine's recordings. But this time, she was just standing quietly, watching Seattle's lights reflect off the calm waters of Elliott Bay. "What are you thinking about?" Nathan asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Catherine," Sarah said softly, "wondering what she'd think of all this. Emily working with us, Katie carrying her name, the foundation changing how tech companies think about ethics." "She'd be proud," Nathan said with certainty. "How do you know?" "Because she told you in her last recording. She wanted you to build a life that honors both the fight and the peace. And Sarah, we did. We really did." Sarah turned in his arms, her eyes searching his face. "Do you ever regret it? That night you heard me talking to her recordings, you could have just reported it and moved on. Found an easier client, a simpler job." Nathan laughed softly. "Easier? Maybe. Better? Never. You gave me the best mystery of my life, and then you gave me the solution, the partnership, and the family I didn't know I was looking for." They stood together in comfortable silence, the city humming below them. Somewhere in that vast urban landscape, people were fighting their own battles, carrying their own secrets, trying to be seen and understood. And maybe, just maybe, someone was choosing to ask questions instead of making assumptions, to trust before having all the answers, to see the person beneath the mystery. Catherine Reeves had been right all along. The right people do show up at the right time. And sometimes the greatest act of protection isn't keeping someone safe from danger. It's seeing them fully and loving them anyway. I still talk to her sometimes, Sarah admitted quietly. Not the recordings, just in my head. Telling her about Katie, about the foundation, about everything we're building. What does she say? Nathan asked. Sarah smiled. She says, I told you so. Now stop talking to me and go live your life. Nathan pulled her closer. Sounds like good advice. The best, Sarah agreed. And there, on the terrace where it all began, surrounded by the city that had witnessed their journey from mystery to truth to love, Nathan and Sarah did exactly that. They lived.